I'm your host, Travis Garland, the CEO of Kickstand AI. We're joined by Mark Hogan-Burke, practice administrator at Stark Women's Center, Stark County's oldest and largest OB-GYN practice. A little bit about your journey.
Well, I've been in healthcare for many years.
How in the world do we develop leaders in a strong enough industry in a way that they're strong in their industry to be able to say, listen, I remember when this was the case. Is memory just now going to be an AI agent sitting on their phone?
I think that is the leader today. Is they're not just numbers. They're people who take care of our patients, and they need
A tech university that was making the comment that we still need HVAC technicians to take care of our AC units. And I'm thinking,
why don't we take a look at it? And it's not like you're shutting it down, but then you're looking at what won't work with it, what was be the problems with it. And when you come up with the process solution, then you can develop the AI and develop the different processes.
what do you take away from that last 5 years of the first half of this decade since COVID, if you will?
Making plans on how to get through the next week, because it's just a different economy. It's a different workforce.
It feels like what I'm feeling from you is that there's this sense of, yeah, technology and automation should be there, but it should never be between the hand and the patient. Welcome to our podcast today. I'm your host, Travis Garland, the CEO of Kickstand AI, where we solve practical problems that amplify the impact of healthcare and wellness organizations through automations and AI technologies. We're joined by Mark Hogan-Burke, practice administrator at Stark Women's Center, Stark County's oldest and largest OB-GYN practice. Mark's career spans urgent care operations and practice administration, and his work has helped modernize patient access while elevating SWC's care beyond the exam room ethos. In our conversation, we'll explore the leadership lessons behind the clinic's rebrand, the on-site diagnostics that streamline care, and the trend shaping women's health, from workforce and technology to the everyday moments that build trust. If you lead a clinic, or you're simply curious, how exceptional care actually happens, Mark's journey offers a practical blueprint for operational excellence with heart. With that as the stage, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Travis, thanks for having me this morning. I'm pleased to be here. It was nice to meet you as we had a pre-discussion. Looking forward to going through this podcast with you and hopefully help others and what my journey has been and help them on their journey.
Absolutely. A lot of stuff to dig into, Mark. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Well, I've been in healthcare for many years. I started as an X-ray technologist, or as an orderly actually, and that went through a hospital-based training program to be an X-ray tech. As I became an X-ray tech and I wanted to learn more about the medical field, I learned how to do CAT scans, MRIs, cardiocath, and grew up the ladder to a point where, it was so much fun having direct patient care. As I got into more of the leadership role, I branched out and developed an urgent care model that I felt was vastly needed about 30 years ago, where a family or husbands especially could go to a place, didn't have to make an appointment, go to a clinic or an urgent care and be taken care of quickly, efficiently. It kind of funny. It kind of started with my son coming to me on a Sunday night, said, "Hey, I need a physical for my football in the morning." And we were like, "Where are you going to go?" We made calls everywhere and nobody did them at the time. So we started the urgent cares based on kind of that premise. And so the urgent care started doing physicals and sports physicals. And next thing you know, we were up to 6, 7 urgent cares, also being asked by different hospitals to run their urgent cares. And it took off. And 30 years ago, there weren't the minute clinics and the different establishments on all the corners. So it was very lucrative to do that. It was a lot of fun to be on the cutting edge of medicine. Learned a lot about insurance reimbursements, learned a lot about people. And that's kind of how I got kickstarted into the business. I kind of broke out a little bit and went on to my consulting business, which helped businesses and fix practices and, gave them processes to improve their systems. And then right before COVID, I landed at Stark Women's Center as COVID was changing the dynamics of all the stuff that we've never been before. And so I landed here to be able to help them through a tough time. And through the inertia of meeting a lot of good people, I've kind of stayed here.
Yeah, that's
So
fantastic.
that's a quick journey over 40 years.
That is a fast journey for 4 decades, that's for sure. And you mentioned a place that, if you think about those sort of grassroots roles where you've really learned how to do things from early work all the way through the rad tech space, that's an incredible journey for sure. You mentioned some of the consulting work here at the end where you're able to help facilitate some advancements in operations work as well. I would say COVID has been one of those times that, as I sit here now, having also been through that with my 2 decades of experience, it's a time and an inflection point for the vast majority of healthcare, as you would most certainly imagine. The conversations around what has happened since COVID, I think are pretty prolific. People have kind of spent the time kind of working through how did you make adjustments? How did you shift? And I would say now we're 4 years out maybe from that time where it was really a powerful time for most organizations. Do you see, as you start to consider the next maybe 5 years, what do you take away from that last 5 years of the first half of this decade since COVID, if you will? What do you take away from that time that you would say operationally, we've really done something that's going to sustain us through the next 5 years? Or do you feel like that was sort of a moment in time, we solved things as we did, and we just, we're going to put those to bed and do things a little bit differently? What's your
Well,
take on
Travis, as a
the
reflection
next
of
five?
COVID, and as we are all post-COVID, or are we? And the flu and all the different things that have popped up through that, we learned one thing, that we are in midst of change. And no matter what you would say years ago, you would say, "Oh, 5 years ago we went through this." You didn't realize it. Through COVID, we were realizing that every day was a new challenge.
Mm,
And it was amazing how the country and the local area and employees in general were shifting their thoughts of, first they're concerned about their health, and then it was concerned about their job, and then the financials, and then the economy. And it changed a lot of people's thought processes. And it's almost like if you're not willing to do a change daily, you're going to be left behind, because
hmm
things were changing so fast. The workforce has changed immensely, and if you don't adjust to it, and you don't adjust your leadership styles to the different changes, you're going to be left behind. And the biggest thing I've noticed and I've adjusted to is the ever thing called change. And it used to be trends, now it's daily. Now you trended over a year, you trended over 2 years, you made 5-year plans. Now I'm making plans on how to get through the next week, because it's just a different economy, it's a different workforce. Those have been the biggest challenges of my career, is the changes.
let me ask you about that workforce comment, Mark, because you hit an interesting nail for me on this one. The timing on it is absolutely rapid. And sort of sitting on this side of the table, thinking about kickstand AI and the automations in AI technology, it does. Every single morning, you read the new news around what's happening in that industry, and it is ripe with changes every single day. I wouldn't say it's by the hour by any means, but I would certainly say weekly, there are new things that are coming out. When you think about the workforce that's coming in, I'm gonna put this in contrast to your experience here, Mark. 4 decades ago, we didn't have the internet, right? We most certainly didn't have AI in this type of a capability. But when you think about the workforce as it's been changing, what advice would you give those ones that are really kind of coming out and trying to move into the same kinds of spaces that you've previously been, but in a very different kind of era? What's your thinking about the workforce coming in to the
Well,
industry?
leadership has changed. What worked before, and you can see it in every venue, whether it's a
hmm
restaurant, whether it's sports, whether it's medical. You have to lead with your heart. You have to understand your clientele, because everybody comes in with challenges. And if you don't manage that way, before you would manage a certain way where this is how it is. If you didn't like it, that's tough. Go get another job. Now you
hmm
find yourself adjusting more to what's out there. You adjust to the person's needs, whether it's divorce, whether it's a challenge of bereavement, whether they're going through financial struggles, because that all is affecting the workforce.
hmm
And if you come in and you get strict on somebody, they just get up and say, "You know what? I don't need this. I'm going to leave." That did not happen 20, 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago. It
hmm
was, if you don't comply, this is how it is. And people would either comply or they would not. It's just very different now. And I've talked to many of my friends and cohorts and colleagues, and they are going, and it doesn't matter what state you're in, what city you're in, it's
hmm
going across the country.
it feels like a moment of how in the world do you establish somebody who has a decade of experience or 15 years of experience within an organization, let alone an industry. If folks really are, listen, I can take my skills elsewhere rapidly and do something different in a whole nother space. It, at the risk of getting way off track here, how in the world do we develop leaders in strong enough industry in a way that they're strong in their industry to be able to say, listen, I remember when this was the case. Is memory just now going to be an AI agent sitting on their phone? Are we building folks that are going to be sustainable in industries and in organizations like yours that can remember how processes used to happen and can put things in rather quickly to adjust for that? It feels like, for sake of maybe being two older gentlemen sitting here having this conversation, I feel like we should have a 20 something really telling us what this means. But I don't know what that might look like. But from your view, you're seeing folks coming into the industry and picking up those leadership skills in different kinds of ways. Does Stark Womenster have a capacity or an interest in sort of changing how that training happens within the organization? Or is it looking to specific kinds of organizations to train folks and then bring people into the organization? How do you guys see that for your future?
Then I tell you, that's the challenge right there is what you just said, is you're taking folks, whether or not they come with a master's degree in business administration or they're
Hmm.
coming out of high school. What we as older leaderships is recognizing the talents and nurturing them and fostering them and trying to educate them. Mentoring them is the best word, is taking them to the next level. I have seen leaders coming out of high school with no diploma, no anything, and they're excellent leaders. They have it what it takes. Then I've seen people with MBAs, the same excellent leaders, but I've seen them both ways on the other side that they're just there to collect a paycheck. I think the leaders that are established now need to recognize what do they have? What can we work with? The old adage, can't expect an elephant to climb a tree. Just don't put them in positions where they cannot succeed. And one of my big things is one of my styles as a manager is I really care about my folks.
Yeah.
And I think that is the leader today is they're not just numbers. They're people who take care of our patients and they need to be taken care of and they need to be put in a situation where they can succeed. However that comes. I know that's a vague answer. Do we have a specific, am I linking up with schools? No, I just take the people that I have here and try to mentor them into another role in their lives.
It's going to take to really pull in some strong leadership, knowing that it might take a community to raise a leader, as we were just referencing. I think it's sort of one of those ideas that as we continue to progress more into automation world or in technologies with AI, there's a considerable amount of energy being placed into the development of that content. And I don't know about you, but certainly on our feeds every day, likely we're seeing things like, let's have an agent or an automation that can just do everything that's rote, that's manual, that's something that you don't want to do. Make sure that there's time for that practical space, that hands-on kind of experience from a physician or an ARNP or a nurse that should be enhanced because of the technology. And that's sort of the roll in as the conversations happen. And from our view, it's certainly something that we anticipate being the case. But from a leadership view, I can imagine that you don't really want to use that content as your brain. It shouldn't be your thinking space. Like your agent shouldn't be your thinker. Your agent could be your doer, if you will, doing rote kinds of things. But when we think about leaders coming into their own and growing, there's a considerable amount of conversations happening on the point of don't let AI and technology be your thinker. Let it be your doer, but don't let it become your sole means of creating knowledge within yourself, of generating creative thought. And I'm kind of curious, there's certainly some stats that are coming out that indicate that we're getting weaker at our ability to actually rationalize and think through content because we just go to AI for everything. That's not the case for many practices. And sometimes that's intentional and sometimes it's just for sake of not wanting to move yet into that world. But when you think about leadership, where do you feel like AI should really land for your organization or for you personally?
Well, it's kind of fun to see it as my age. It's amazing that our cell phones that we hold in our hands have so much more power than the PCs that we had years ago. And when back in the days when we took call at Ohio State, we get a page, we'd have to stop by a phone on the side of the road, put your quarter in, and answer your page. Where
Sure.
if you imagine how much it's changed over that time, well,
Mm-hmm.
so is everything else. But in the end of the day, this communication that we are doing now and the communication to face is still number one.
Mm-hmm.
And if AI can enhance your process, which in our practice we are using different programs to enhance, I think it's a good thing. I don't see it replacing the good morning, the thank you very much for coming in, and especially medicine, where the touch and the smile goes a long way in people's personal challenge. I think we get away from that in medicine, we're in trouble because medicine of anything, you still have to care about the person. And if you come off to be automated, I don't think you're sending a good message.
Mm-hmm.
I like employees calling me when they have an issue and they're calling off. Texting and those kind of things are good, but will they really suffice?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better to have the face-to-face on certain things.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I remember back the idea of sort of bedside manners that has not gone away by any means, but just the phrasing of how do you interact with your patients more directly. That concept to me feels like something that AI will never tap into, right?
Agreed.
I saw a recent advertisement, completely unrelated field, but it was a tech university that was making the comment that we still need HVAC technicians to take care of our AC units. And I'm thinking, how true is this? Like, we could put all the computers we want in things, but no one's going to put in a new, a new coil in your AC because you still got people to do it. Like, what are we doing here? And there's a moment of additional education that feels like should be coming in, which is how do you utilize technology in a way that helps not supplant but support the conversations that are happening at the bedside. And there are a few of those kinds of things that are sitting out there, but there are things like ambient technology or ambient transcription. That is something that is pretty familiar. It's sort of gaining traction where physicians, providers are utilizing that type of technology in the 10 by 10 exam room, if you will. And they're able to take notes without typing away. They can interact with their patients more frequently. They can get quicker summaries. Referrals are done. Prescriptions are done before they even move, like step away from the room because of that type of technology. So there feels like like maybe it's contributing and supporting that interaction between a provider and a patient. But when you think about where technology is heading and that balance between the clinical work that has to happen and the administrative work that has to happen as a practice administrator, how do you see the words being spoken and the work that has to get done being balanced between those two things using technology in any way?
Well, I don't see it replacing patient care ever.
Mm.
I think that the touch and the patient care and the face to face and the eye to eye is always going to be there. Now, there are advances in AI, billing, being able to text people their invoice, being able to email folks, improving those processes are good.
Mm-hmm.
Reminder calls, reminder texts, even though they could be annoying, are good. It's like, wow, I forgot my appointment. Back in the old days, you had the little card that you would lose, and where's my appointment time?
Yeah.
And I think those things are really enhancing the practice. The way your electronic medical records works on communicating with the patient and tracking, diabetes better. There's programs out there that has where you can track diabetes with the patient and communicate with them as their healthcare goes along. Those are excellent. And there's excellent tools on communication through portals, to different things, so patients can kind of see where they're going and communicate with their provider through online, which has never been before. And I think that's really gone well. We don't utilize telemedicine as much as we did when COVID was hit because a lot of people don't like that. They still like the touch and they still like to come in and they still like to be seen. And a lot of times if it's just reassurance,
Mm-hmm.
that's the medical world.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, especially in the specialty space, like OB-GYN practices feel a little bit different to me. And I, on the outside looking in here, Mark, help me understand this a bit more. If I'm considering my PCP and I'm thinking about, of course, them palpating my belly, as a normal wellness kind of visit is one thing. But outside of that, a lot of typical kinds of questions that come about, and they're normal questions. When you get into specialty practices, especially when it comes to pregnancies, do you feel like that's a niche space that just demands higher touches? At least that's kind of what I'm picking up.
Absolutely. Because a woman who's pregnant or a family that's pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like something's not quite right. Something, maybe not enough movement, maybe just something in their body. They want the reassurance that everything is either okay or, and if that's good enough, that should be good enough. We have program with women that go through demises, and we work with a group called Taylor Bears. And Taylor, who I know well, she developed this program on her own personal demise, and she's developed these bears, and they're stuffed animals about 12 to 16 inches, and they are very soft, and they have a little message from her on how they can help and how you hold on to them. That's not AI. That is a touchy-feely program that we've had tremendous amount of response from patients that they love the bears, that they've really helped them take their steps in recovery. And, one would say that's a no-brainer, but somebody came up with the idea. We use them, but we hand them out to people, and there's that personal touch that if you didn't have that, who knows how that person can recover from such a traumatic situation.
Yeah. It sort of takes us even farther down that separation of the technology. And it feels like there's always going to be a balance that's there. But for you and for Stark, it feels like there's a moment to step back and say, there's a space for technology. And the space at this point isn't something that you guys are saying it's going to take over any of this clinical work. What we really need to do is balance that warm touch from our providers, our physicians, because not only, yes, we're a specialty practice, but you're also a practice that seems to really hone in on the heart of nurturing care. There's the sense that I'm getting from you, Mark, that as OB-GYNs, as the physicians there, I think that there's maybe a half dozen or so that are in the practice, if I'm not mistaken. They may be walking into an exam room with somebody who is a first-time mother, maybe is a fourth-time mother, but now has a complicated pregnancy and is in a very different state of mind than she's been in the first three. And both of those instances require a hands-on approach that is heart-driven. And it feels like what I'm feeling from you is that there's this sense of, yeah, technology and automation should be there, but it should never be between the hand and the patient. There's a difference there that we have to be sensitive to. So let me like step back from that 10 by 10 space for a second. As a practice administrator and as a leader for the practice itself, where do you see that technology and that touch moving forward for you? What kinds of things do you wake up in the morning and say, oh man, this is a bunch of junk that I just don't want to do, and I wish somebody would do it for me? Like, what's that 50%, 60% of your daily life that is just the boring stuff that you would love to just get rid of and automate with technology? Is there anything in that space for you?
Well, I tell you, I wish there was, because every day I wake up thinking, what can we do better and enhancing our processes and doing them cost efficiently, because you have to add that in with the ever changing revenue streams and the expenses that keep going up. You just basically look every day to see what's out there, what's an improvement. Problem two is, when you make an improvement, are you making an improvement? Because you're doing it on the fly. You don't have the luxury of, oh, we're going to see one patient today, try it out and go on. So whatever you're going to try will affect your flow immediately. So you have to be real cautious on what you think might help, might deter. And the example would be, we use an online check-in system. And when we get here, we have little tablets that you can check in. But if you're 70, 80 years old and technology is, you have one of those flip phones, that is not your forte. And there have been, if you're thinking for the 30-year-olds and the 20s and maybe even 40s, that is the way they're living. Technology, they check in, they put their insurance card in, everything is automated, but it doesn't work when you have a day where you're doing a lot of GYN patients. So you have to be real careful on how you fix your practice in one end might deter the flow on the other. And if there was a challenge of when I wake up in the morning, it's that right there. But I will go back to, you've got to develop your folks with people skills. And if you can do that through, back in the day, you did some training on, one-to-one. Now you have online training that you can educate people. What do folks want? They want to be greeted. They want to be treated well. They want it to be good follow-up. If you don't have those, you can have any AI that you need out there. Isn't not going to work. So
that's fair.
That's pretty much what I wake up with, is those challenges.
Yeah. It's, I know when we were having our conversation leading up to this podcast, there was a couple of moments you mentioned the bears, and I'll pull in this sort of automation piece that I felt like contributed to that heartstring for me. Speaking with a practice up in Jacksonville, and they've done some work on their front end. You mentioned the pads and sort of folks using the pads. They took a little bit of a different approach to the use of that sort of front office space, and they've done a couple of things. One is they developed an AI receptionist who does just scheduling. So if there is an issue of a scheduling, a cancellation, a change, that comes into an AI bot that manages all that with no problem, reschedules them, and does all sorts of things. And it relieved about 10 to 15% of the time of the front desk staff. The individual who was actually doing most of that work actually started taking the time to write thank you notes and a couple of other sort of personal types of approaches for folks that were leaving the practice for either a wellness visit, writing a simple note, thank you for coming in for your annual visit, looking forward to seeing you next time. And it was sort of that moment of a warm exchange between the clinic and the patient, just to say, hey, thanks for coming. And it was freed up by the automation, right? So we're not getting rid of staff. They're actually just using them in a way that helps those patients feel more inclined, more loyal, in the business terms, maybe more sticky as a patient to the practice. And that was really helpful. They have another one that they use for sort of post-visit, and I'll say sort of trauma related, but I don't, trauma is probably not the appropriate word. It's really more just like I've received poor news and I want to make sure that my patient is taken care of before they leave the practice. And it was a very interesting dynamic. The comment was, "Hey, we're going to use some of this time to have a trained psychologist or a mental health professional be there. And when they have to deliver news like this happens to be a practice that specializes in cancer treatment and testing. And so when a patient gets that kind of news, they were really concerned about how do we use some of our time and our staff. And they chose to do it in that means. So instead of having somebody spend that front desk time doing things, they had individuals who could spend time chatting with patients, helping them kind of work through things or working with their loved ones that came with them during the appointment, just to sort of help them. Maybe there's another appointment that they want to take to kind of deal with some of that news that they just received. And we've also spoken to them about maybe doing some some audio recordings or some video educational material to help folks understand the diagnosis and content a little bit better. But that's the kind of stuff that feels like, how do you take away the time that just doesn't need to be spent by humans and use the time to do things that make you even more human? And I think that was sort of a couple of exchanges that I've had in the past with practices, but it takes some creative thinking in a way that those two practices, I feel like, really kind of stepped in and said, this is what our patients are experiencing. What can we do to make it a different kind of experience for them? And that's how they took advantage of it. And both of those were from the frontline staff. And you made a wonderful comment about sort of training those frontline individuals to have that touch, to be able to understand when to step in at different times or how to interact with individuals in their front office. And that's a big deal for practices. I know I've walked into practices that have felt sterile and disconnected and just uninterested in the fact that you're there for maybe a potentially really kind of scary thing. And boy, when they've got the human touch in a way that is better than it has been in the past, I know that I've noticed that in practices for sure.
That's a great point. And what you said is, as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself, maybe I'd take a relook at this, to see maybe are there, but that's the challenges of this leadership is look at it. This practice, what makes us unique is you can get your mammogram done, your annual visit, a DEXA done all in one day. And it takes a lot of coordination to make sure those schedules work. So when I did look at AI, there was very limited. Yeah, they can make the schedule, they can help do the scheduling. But in our practice, we're proud that we have a great mammography department. We have a great ultrasound department. We do DEXA scans, we do the whole thing. And then you go to the other side to be able to follow up and see your provider basically and see the results right away. It's one-stop shopping. Well, AI is very challenging when you're on that level to make all that work. However, though, if you don't take a look at it to see if it's practical and if it could work, then you're going to be on the outside looking in a year from now.
Yeah.
And that's when I started this, is looking at it on a daily thing, what the changes are happening, what's being out there that enhances, and also listen to your staff, because they go to doctors, they go to other places, they see what's happening, and they come back with feedback and say, hey, our practice does X, Y, Z. Why don't we take a look at it? And it's not like you're shutting it down, but then you're looking at what won't work with it, what will be the problems with it. And when you come up with the process solution, then you go to the next level with the trial. We are doing this with our diabetes studies right now, and it's on cutting edge, and I'm really excited about it. And it's just one of the many things that we're trying to do to keep us up with the levels cost effectively, and so the patients don't feel like they're disconnected. And I loved your statement on that one.
Yeah, that is. It feels like that's the number one space for start, because that there's a very clear moment of that disconnection being an elimination point. You cannot have that separation. And to the point of separation, the idea that you have so much on site is a powerful moment for me, as I kind of listen to how you guys have set up your practice and the advancements. Your ability as an administrator to ensure that individuals don't get caught up in the moment of, well, who do I call for this referral? Or how do I get on the scheduling there? Or what if they can't see me for a month from now, but my next appointment with you guys is in 3 weeks? And there's this management of the referral patterns and the timing and the traveling to different locations and the time off of work and the juggling of your family, all for sake of wanting to get the best care. And you guys are sitting here saying, listen, the best care is here. It's 15 feet down the hall. We'll take care of it for you. And it sounds like in the same day, like you could, do the full wellness suite, if you will, in one visit. And that's I don't hear that a ton, Mark, but that it does seem like something that is a differentiator. Is that a recent transition for you guys, or is
No,
that
that's
something that?
been the way it's been here, but it's been growing with the efficiencies.
Okay.
And what I see is women come in with a breast lump and it turns into more, there's got to be somebody on the other end, a
Hmm.
person to call them and say, here's your situation, but here's what we're going to do for you. I
Yeah.
feel like if you get an AI recording, I don't feel, especially in Stark County in this area, plus this practice, it's going to come off the same caring and loving way.
Hmm.
And we've got you set up with the surgeon, we've got you set up with this. Your next step, let us know if we can do anything and be there for them on every note. Man, I'll tell you what, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That
That is.
stuff is why us leaders get into this to see that process at work.
Yeah.
And it can be very powerful. I get emotional when I think about it because I can tell you story after story after story
Hmm.
on how we've helped someone to the next line. And I think if we could do a follow up with everybody that's had that, it would be astronomical. And I
Yeah.
tell the staff all the time, what you say, how you treat, how you smile makes a big difference. Because that patient could come in from a death in the family or financial burdens or whatever, and now they're finding out that they have X diagnosis. You've got to be there. We've got to be there as a smile. And would AI be the same? Would it give it the same reaction? Right now, in
Hmm.
my opinion, no, it would not.
Yeah. That's fair. So I think as we get to the end here, Mark, what I've what I'm sitting here thinking about, we've covered some leadership and journey topics. Certainly, we've hit on some of your consultation material. We've spoken about some of that balance of the clinical versus the automations and AI in the technology space and the practice, the growing of leadership. To go back on that point really quickly, that sort of is a moment of how do we make sure that we've got the right kinds of individuals continuing to grow in the industry and becoming strong leaders in the next 5, 10, 15 years as they move through. But I'll sort of give the mic to you here on the last little bit for us. Where do you see maybe your specific practice going, or the interchange between the clinical work and the automation and the technology space really happening? Where do you see the next 5 years?
Man, with what we've been through in the last 5 years, to make a
Hmm.
prediction of what we're going to see is going to be very difficult. I think continuing looking at what's improving medicine,
Hmm.
they've got some new items out there that are pretty nice. Taking blood pressures, taking all that, automatically going into the EMR, so there's no room for human error. There's the automated billing systems and how it works, because if you screw up on one of the issues on billing, then you fail the visit. And
Hmm.
if you don't do the greeting and if you don't answer your phones, we've had challenges with our phone system, and probably going to have to upgrade it to be a little more robust to not let phone calls drop, or not. How would you take that call,
Hmm.
because it's almost impossible to keep live phones today. It's always been my dream to have live phones. Having somebody answer that phone, what would be the best differential in medicine right now, to have somebody live right away instead of going through the 1,000 prompts that you have to go.
Yeah.
How to make that more efficient. Well,
Yeah.
without people, it's really hard to do that. But then do you use AI to give you a step up, if you possibly can, to the point where people won't be offended if they get a automated recording there, and kind of schedule yourself. So what's going to happen in 5 years? It's challenging. The insurance companies are there. The challenges of the reimbursements and then the expenses. So everything has to be cost contained. And
Hmm.
with Stark, that's our big thing, is making sure that we take care of everybody who walks in that door and give them the best care we possibly can, to make sure that they go out and tell 10 of their people and 10 of those that Stark is a good place to come. And you got to have good people with that. And then you can develop the AI and develop the different processes. But it starts with your employees, your providers, of course, and the caring about the people you take care of.
Yeah. I love it. I don't know that you could have said it any better than that, Mark. I would say, um, one, thank you so much for your time. I certainly hope that
Travis, it's been a
our
pleasure.
audience get that opportunity and those nuggets for sure. Um, we'll cut it off at this point, Mark, and then I'll really say I appreciated your view on this most certainly, because there's the technology space it's a growing one. Those kinds of capabilities do exist. You can make them pretty darn warm. You can certainly program personalities, if you will, and tone into these kinds of automations. But it's a fun space for sure to be working in. I know that the way that you're talking about it, your practice is one that is probably in that space of, man, we need people to do awesome stuff, and they've got to continue doing awesome stuff. And automations can help support that, but in different ways. And I feel like one of those comments is, how do you take off the weight of some of the stuff that they don't want to do anymore? They shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't be wasting their time doing stuff, so that they can continue to do things. Because your cornerstone is, let's hire good people to do awesome stuff. And when you do hire good people, you don't want them spending 15% of their day scheduling other people. Like, you don't want someone calling in and for that really awesome warm touch person to be sitting there and saying, well, we don't have an appointment on Tuesday at 4, but we have one on Wednesday at 2. Like, that's not the kind of work that really awesome people should be doing, easily capable to manage through AI capabilities and whatnot. But
Sure.
It's certainly a good conversation. What I'll do from here, Mark, just so you have a sense, I'm going to go back. I'm going to do a couple of sort of segments, highlights, clips of our conversation, just so you can kind of get a sense of how we're putting some pieces together. I'd love to be able to just schedule another quick call so you can kind of see what those pieces are.
Absolutely.
And,
Fridays are good for me, Travis.
Yeah, that's fair. Did you? I'm sorry, Mark. Did you say that's good, or Friday was good?
Fridays are good.
Okay. I've got. So if I look at the 12th, is that another good day for you? Okay. How do you want to do the same time? Is
same time, sure. Same time would be great.
Let's do that then. I'll send you. It'll just be a Zoom meeting. We don't have to jump on a Riverside link. So I'll send you a Zoom meeting. I'll send you some clips ahead of time so you can kind of see it. And if you have any questions in the meantime, just let me know, Mark.
Thanks, good. But Travis, nice to meet you, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
It's a pleasure as well. Take care of yourself. We'll chat next Friday.
Have a great weekend.
All right, sir.